Welcome to Aston Means Business, a podcast from Aston University. My name's Steve Dyson, and I'm the journalist who's been interviewing a mixture of top business academics here at Aston. This podcast has been going since October 2019, and there are now more than 50 previous episodes that you can find and listen to by simply Googling Aston Means Business. In today's episode, I'm going to explore the world of social media, finding out what platforms like TikTok can do for your business. I'll also be comparing X, or what used to be known as Twitter, alongside the recently emerging Threads and looking at various other digital marketing techniques. The expert guiding me through these complex channels is Francis Milidi. He's a senior teaching fellow in digital marketing here at Aston University and also is program director of the university's MSc in Strategic Digital Marketing. Hello to you, Francis.
Hello, Steve. Very nice to meet you.
Francis, let's begin by finding out a bit more about yourself. Who are you? What were you doing before you came to Aston University? And what's your main focus here?
For a very long time, Steve, I was actually mostly lecturing in strategy and international business. But I've always been a technological geek, self-taught. And I've been there since the early days of the internet in the 1990s with CompuServe chat rooms. A lot of students today wouldn't imagine that social media actually existed in the 1990s with interrelay chats and the chat rooms from CompuServe and AOL. And I've sort of always naturalized with the technology over a period of time. In the early years at the University of Westminster, where I spent 20 years, I started teaching e-commerce and digitalization, and therefore sort of embraced teaching in that and autodidacting and learning about technology. And then in strategic management, I brought in all of the themes on disruptive technology and adapting to fast changing environments, which the digital environment of today is still very exponential. So I have a strong background in technology in my teaching. Around 2016, I started to specialize more and more in digital marketing. Got a qualification from the Digital Marketing Institute and sort of the majority of my teaching. And then I spent a little bit of time at Oxford Brookes on their digital marketing portfolio in undergraduate and postgraduate, but then joined Aston in June 2020, where I specialized as a senior teaching fellow in digital marketing and actually bringing more and more of that content into the curriculum of the marketing and strategy department.
Fascinating. And the MSc in Strategic Digital Marketing is what we're here to explore today, because I understand that you've launched that course, you wrote the course. So tell us more details about it, Francis. What's involved? What will students be doing on the course? And what will they be prepared for when they graduate?
Well, there's a little backstory to that. When I joined in June 2020, Aston Business School was triple accredited. There's only just over 100 universities worldwide that have that accreditation. So it's very good in marketing and business, but it didn't actually have a degree in digital marketing. And during lockdown, I had a chat with the head of department at that time, Dr. Wendy Tabrizi. And I said, we need an MSc in that because all of the competition has one. And it would sort of strengthen the portfolio of the department. So Wendy said, well, we only have you at the moment, Francis. What can we do? I said, well, I'm willing to write one. I'm not commuting. A lot of the work we're doing is through digital means. And therefore, I wrote a proposal with a diagram designed in Lucid Chart. They liked it, took it through the approval process, and in September 2022, the degree was launched. What is different about the degree? It's strategic. It's designed for people who are going to become managers of digital brands and traditional brands in the future. It's about using an integrated approach, and it has lots of unusual but very relevant modules like digital analytics and artificial intelligence, which we believe go together. So covering the aspects and the revolution in AI and disruptive technologies, but also looking at external analytics and on-site analytics. And then also digital psychology and biobehavior, which is extremely important, as well as the traditional modules in digital marketing, but split down into very specialist areas like digital advertising as a standalone module. And then my vision for the whole program is organic first. I know there are practitioners out there who believe more in paid because of the vested interests, but content marketing for digital media is a particularly important module for me, that I designed as part of the program. And then we have ones on integrated communications and digital marketing and the digital marketing environment that focuses on all the major trends that are happening in digital technologies, not just digital marketing. So the students eventually actually produce a very comprehensive knowledge of the different disciplines in order to become a manager in the future who thinks in an integrated sense. I'm a big fan of Mark Ritson in Australia, who says that digital marketing is not the panacea, it's not the replacement for marketing overall. He recognizes it's very important as part of marketing. And I take the same view, and that's the vision for the degree, that these people who will become digital marketing managers or even marketing managers of the future don't have a silo mentality. They see how traditional and digital marketing actually fit together. And so there are a huge number of vacancies, both in the UK, when we did the market feasibility of this, one of the largest areas in business studies and marketing in general and management were vacancies in digital, that companies and public sector organizations and not-for-profit organizations are looking for. Because all of them, whether they're new brands that are primarily digital or traditional or hybrid brands which operate online and offline, they all need these skills. Not just skills in social media, but skills in communication, creative, um, organic content, and also understanding paid placement and its effectiveness. And of course, data analytics. There are specifically pure data analysts and people who write Python and coding, but they've got to understand the statistics and the trends and the optimization of digital because it's all in real time. And so the degree caters for all of that and gives the students real skills in today's world. Increasingly, there's a saturation of undergraduate qualifications. So a postgraduate qualification that's specialist can be a differentiation even in the UK market, where you can get a job with a good 2-1 undergraduate degree. But a good specialist qualification at PG level is a differentiator. And for international students, it's de facto. If you live in Europe or other parts of the world, having a postgraduate qualification is necessary in order to get some of the graduate level career jobs.
Just focusing on the degree for a moment, I was just interested in what kind of assignments the students get to tackle. You know, what challenges do you give them to sort out as they go through the course?
Quite a variety. There's some emphasis on live cases. So, two of the modules this year have had live cases with digital or other brands. In my case, on content marketing for digital media, I actually had a live case on the property market, an estate agent based in the Four Shires. To explain that for anyone else, that would include Oxfordshire, the Cotswolds, Warwickshire, places like that, which are just outside of London. Very beautiful, full of beautiful British villages. Property is very desirable. And estate agent businesses, it's quite a lucrative market for them. So they were looking at the real estate market and the property market. Some students wouldn't necessarily see the relevance of that straight away because some of them do like consumer brands. But what we try to teach them when we're teaching, the thing to try and ensure on the thing is we cover some consumer brands, of course, because they're relevant and students like them. But they have to learn about services-based industries and about business-to-business brands. So, for example, there is a module where we do e-commerce and social selling. And there's a lot of B2B digital marketing and relationship building using digital things. And a live case study would be on B2B relationships in that case, with particular brands. And the people come in and speak from industry, particularly from the West Midlands. In my case, I brought in an estate agent who has focused their estate agency business in the Four Shires. We had an online interview for 1 hour, so that was recorded as a podcast video. And then, so they get a deep insight into the entrepreneurial mindset, because it's not just about big corporates. On the Masters, we cover brands of all sizes. So the students get a scalable education on different types of organizations. They also learned a lot about the property market, where content marketing by estate agents tends to be terrible on average. And the need for good organic content to sell property is absolutely crucial. There are people embracing that, but even the digital brands like Purple Bricks and Yopa still need to up the game. So they learned the importance that in some cases, digital marketing, and particularly organic content marketing through websites and social media in certain sectors, is a total melee across the whole sector. And it's only in other particular areas like tech brands, like Apple, Samsung, who present themselves reasonably well digitally, fashion brands, like ASOS, for example, who are pure play. So we're trying to get the students to learn a whole range of things. The majority of it is actually coursework. And the only exception to that is they do some online factual tests, because I'm a great believer in combining the American system of assessment, where you learn factual knowledge and you do quizzes, combined with the advantage of the UK system, which we embrace at Aston, where you have critical thinking built into written coursework. And it's all individual, although they do a lot of formative group thinking in the seminars and classes.
I was interested in what you were saying about the balance between traditional marketing and digital marketing. They're perhaps more used to things like, I don't know, business breakfasts, exchanging business cards, physical activity. What is happening in today's world? Are people not doing that anymore?
A lot of tech people still want to meet up. Even YouTube creators who are infopreneurs, and I'm purely talking about YouTube influencers and creators who produce their own material, they still go to conferences. Apple now invites all the leading YouTubers to their keynote speech in California. So I think offline networking is still vitally important. Everything from business breakfasts to networking conferences. Human beings want social contact. We saw what happened during COVID. We saw the growth of video and its tremendous potential in living a blended life, a blended lifestyle, both in terms of family and professional life. And I think even that's the future for learning, is blended learning. So I think that physical networking is still very, very powerful because it cements the human relationship, and we haven't changed. But I think increasingly more and more, the opportunity for networking through social media like LinkedIn, video conferencing through technologies like Zoom and Teams have evolved tremendously. So I think they're becoming a bit like digital advertising and traditional advertising. Let's just purely talk about that. They're about 50-50 now. So I would say I would apply the 50-50 rule to that, the importance about physical and digital networking skills.
I want to delve into your expertise, Francis, about one or two of the digital brands out there. One of the increasingly popular channels seems to be TikTok, for instance. TikTok, of course, offering short, eye-catching video clips. And if they're successful, I understand they can sometimes attract millions of views, different postings on TikTok. How difficult is it to set up things like TikTok for your company? Do you need to be a techie? And is it expensive?
No, not from an organic perspective. It's not actually expensive to go on to places like TikTok, or X as we would call it now, regrettably. We can talk about that later, or Facebook, and set up a channel and post organically, which is why I think an organic first strategy is very important, because if you can get that right, then paid will supplement that very well. In fact, some organic posts can be then boosted if they're successful with their core following by going to paid, as they often do on things like X or Instagram, for example. But TikTok is a real phenomenon because, like Instagram, it uses the what we would call the portrait format of the smartphone. And over 80% of digital consumption is on a smartphone. They're converged devices. The latest technology in converged devices for both communication, using websites, search, apps, social media on a smartphone is tremendously powerful because of the quality of the screens. And most people, if they can afford it, go for mid-range to top-range flagships. The new iPhone 15 Pro has remarkable, literally was announced yesterday, potential. Some of it's hyped, but the new A17 Pro chip is capable of tremendous creativity in terms of videography and photography, but also gaming, which is one of the world's biggest sectors. But to be specific, the TikTok phenomenon is parallel to Instagram. Instagram was Meta's greatest bargain at $1 billion, and that uses visual media, mainly predominantly stills, using smartphone technology. So everyone is a photographer these days, quite surprisingly. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's excellent. It actually pushes the sale of premium SLRs and lenses at the next level. But 2016, Douyin started in China. And in 2017, like many Chinese brands with a strong vision, Yinmin, the founder, looked globally, and they bought a small startup in the United States called Musical.ly, where young people, they targeted a young demographic. It was a very young social media for a few $100 million, where young people mimed pop songs. But they wanted to then expand the Douyin brand to be a global brand because a Chinese brand was not going to work with all the controversies and geopolitics. So what they did was they globalized the brand. And what's happening with TikTok, it started off with a primarily younger demographic between 16 to 25, but it's expanding into the 35 and 44-year-olds. Most social media at the moment tends to peak up to mid-40s. The only one that still has some significant users is the Meta network with Facebook and LinkedIn, over 44. But what people don't realize is TikTok is not just for young people. There's lots of older millennials on there, and the demographic will become more and more dispersed. So it is a very powerful audience. And I would argue now it is possibly only second to Meta as a social media in terms of its power. And this is the power of the Chinese and the liquidity of the Chinese as well, because they've got the money. As we've seen with the success of Alibaba and AliExpress in promoting business to business and even business to consumer, buying Chinese products, because they're not all rubbish. You know, it would be very narrow to think that Chinese brands are not leading in terms of the way they do things. In fact, we talk about X later, but Musk wants to kind of copy what WeChat is doing by converging a lot of things into the app, but we can talk about that shortly. But going back to brands, and I think it's relevant to mention Gymshark because the founder of Gymshark studied at Aston and
Oh,
one of the
right.
most successful, one of the top 5 brands on TikTok with 4.9 million followers is Gymshark, because they've posted a lot about fashion and fitness, and that's the success of the brand, blending fashion and fitness together. So you don't just put on very plain utilitarian clothes, you can look fashionable and feel comfortable. And they've leveraged the Generation Z and to some degree the millennial market using TikTok very successfully. And then some of the brilliant brands in marketing, like Red Bull, have are amongst the top 5 followers, because their marketing across the board is simply brilliant. Because when you think about it, if you look at the core product, it's just an energy drink. What's the difference between Red Bull and Monster? They both have strong physical presence in the market, but it's Red Bull's marketing. And it's on the level of Nike. They're the modern soft drinks phenomenon. You'd have to say their digital and overall branding and marketing communications is now better than the huge soft drinks companies like Coca-Cola.
On TikTok, how does a business use that phenomena, that channel, to attract people to its brand?
The short video form and posting videos that are authentic and connect currently with mostly the younger demographic, but with entertainment and humor, but also information. So what's very good about, for example, the Gymshark brand, they understand the nature of marketing communications using the digital and very much the portrait format. So they use the short video form to showcase the visual importance of lifestyle and fashion, but also lots of information on fitness. The current generations spend a lot more time on their fitness. In fact, they influence us and their appearance, and not necessarily in a narcissistic sense, just taking pride in their fashion, their personal identity, and their appearance and their fitness. And Gymshark leveraged that on TikTok very well. And then Red Bull will always bring great video content to TikTok, just like they did to YouTube with Danny McCaskill on mountain biking down the mountains of the Isle of Skye. That also works on TikTok in short form video. So it's leveraging the success of YouTube, but using smartphone creativity and consumption. You can also then do paid advertising, but I would advise any brand to go in, first of all, with an organic first strategy, get to understand TikTok. You don't have to have the world's most successful creative like Gymshark or Red Bull, but at least begin to understand it and get some following from the social media, and then start talking to in-house marketing people and even specialist agencies to achieve success in the paid, because paid video on TikTok, but there is a great onus on making sure that even the paid video ads are very, very creative. Fashion, cosmetics, lifestyle, like Instagram, and even tech have been very successful with short form video on mediums like Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Let's not forget YouTube. As much as we talk about the TikTok phenomenon, one of the world's top 3 social media is still YouTube. But short form video on a smartphone dedicated to that format, because Instagram and TikTok are not really PC or tablet based apps. They're part of the smartphone phenomenon, which still continues to be the trend for us all. TikTok is an important part of most brands' digital portfolios in the world today. In fact, TikTok's got a very big user base in countries like Brazil and Indonesia. So its importance, apart from Douyin in China, but the global TikTok brand, which is part of Douyin own it globally, it is very powerful in both developed markets and emerging markets, with the exception of India because of the geopolitics between India and China, where it's banned.
The ownership of these brands is really interesting because until recently, you mentioned X earlier, previously known as Twitter, of course, it was huge across the world. It drove revolutions and all sorts of things. But for businesses as well, it was seen as an important channel. And yet, new owner Elon Musk, his changes appear, according to some, to be wrecking what's now known as X. Do you agree, or does Musk have some kind of long-term plan that makes sense?
Well, that's a very good question. It's very easy to love or hate Elon Musk and sort of have an emotional response to him as a global figure, which he is. We don't just have global figures in politics now. In fact, of much more interest to lots of people, including younger people, are the people who've led things in digital enterprise and transformation. And Musk is one of them. People forget that Musk isn't just somebody who hijacked Tesla and turned them into a bigger company. He's not the original founder of Tesla. And he did some good things with Tesla. He raised their profile, he raised more equity for them, he synergized them into an energy company that produces both solar energy and storage, both business to consumer, solar roof tiles, and gradually improving the quality of performance electric cars. Tesla did make electric cars exciting despite some of their early defect rates, and the prices are coming down. And Musk's vision with Tesla, and we can come back to social media in a minute, we just talk about the man himself, was to create cars that were exciting, and sell them to the upper echelons of different socioeconomic income brackets at the beginning, but gradually penetrate the mass market more and more. I don't think Tesla is ever going to sell a cheap car, because the most valuable for any brand in the world, and what people want after the economic concept of inferior goods, once your income goes up, you want at least a mid-market brand in terms of quality. So Tesla is able, like Apple, people think Apple's always premium. That's not the case. Is to offer a range of mid-range to premium brands. So Musk, he was the founder of PayPal. He sold it to eBay. He is, for all intents and purposes, historically a very good visionary in business. Yes, most of his net worth is asset-based, and he would admit himself he's not worth a lot of actual money. He's still a multi-millionaire, but he's not a multi-billionaire in liquid assets. He's not the most wealthy liquid billionaire in the world. And things like Tesla or X could tank very quickly. It happened to Nokia. It happened to General Motors. You know, some of the stalwarts of big brands have gone by the wayside. BlackBerry, you know, Research in Motion, a legendary company. Legendary companies, you know, I would equate Twitter with BlackBerry in terms of their innovation in microblogging. Twitter was set up in 2006 in microblogging, and it perfected hashtag trends, which many others copied, and the power of microblogging. It never made money. It never has. It's a question about how much money Twitter was hemorrhaging. The problem for Twitter, it didn't go down the direction under Dorsey or future CEOs of becoming a not-for-profit company like Wikipedia, an organization which is not-for-profit and relies on donations. And Wikipedia is not to be underestimated in its knowledge database. Some academics look down on it, but there's actually some very well-referenced articles on that. Twitter was sort of almost somewhere in between, but it was still an enterprise. It had too many employees. It hadn't monetized the platform enough, although 90% of its things were from advertising. The problem was the age demographic of Twitter. It wasn't bringing the younger demographic on board that Instagram and TikTok were doing, and it was beginning to plateau. The problem for me is that Musk spent $44 billion on that. I can see some of the things he wants to do are the correct things, you know, to try and rationalize the brand, monetize it a little bit more effectively, attract more advertisers. But because he's treating it like a vanity project, he lost 50% of his advertisers. There's been an increase in hate speech. He's overpaid for the brand at $44 billion. There's a 30% level of debt on that acquisition cost at $13 billion. The positives are that, particularly US driven, he's increased the monthly active users. This is what they're saying, and they tend to be. Musk doesn't generally lie. He can be prone to misbehavior, as we know, because of his condition and because of his vanity, a combination of both. But it has increased to 546 million users from over 400 million before by bringing more people back into the fold. The question remains how much of that is people who resort to extreme views. However, having said that, the old Twitter ownership were becoming very indulgent in banning people just for having freedom of speech. It's a very grey area between the original Twitter and what Musk is trying to achieve, where you allow freedom of speech without banning or suspending people, but also don't engage in over censorship, but try to protect social media users from hate speech or fake news. And I don't think that Musk has got that balance right. So, yes, there's been a following in America and elsewhere that have onboarded a number of users and improved that base. But how sustainable is that moving into the future when we have other social media that are very strong, like Meta, with over 3.6 billion users worldwide, TikTok with 3.3 billion users, and any one of them has the power to produce a very powerful microblogging feature, as Facebook have done with their new sub-brand Threads.
Yes, I wanted to ask about Threads, because if the power of Twitter or X is waning, is Threads something which businesses and entrepreneurs could focus on next? How,
Absolutely.
how different is it?
Well, Meta is a portfolio. That's the power of Meta. It's not just about Facebook. It's about Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. It's a portfolio of powerful digital brands, as is Google. Google is also about media. And Google's biggest social media is YouTube. And then, of course, all the monthly active users using Gmail. And, of course, the kings of search. So the Alphabet Group is a digital portfolio brand. Meta is a digital portfolio brand. ByteDance and TikTok and Douyin is a digital portfolio brand. X isn't. And I think that's what Musk wants to do with it now. He wants to bring in a whole load of converged users like payments, subscriptions, and premium features. But the problem is, for example, the blue tick, the subscription to blue tick, and the ability to edit tweets, as we would have called them, and I would still call them, costs you something like $11 a month. They've only got revenue in the first 3 months of $11 million from that. When you consider the advertising business is still worth billions to Twitter and hundreds of billions to the other digital portfolios, that is a problem. I'm not saying somewhere down the line that Musk couldn't make a success of that, but he did overpay for it and they did carry a lot of debt. And I'd be worried about the fact that Musk has overstretched himself across a number of industries. Even when they were moving their servers, he wouldn't allow a phased project management exercise in doing that. He even got involved in doing that himself and using a company to transport the servers, which they paid for cash. So I think he's too much of a control freak. There's a danger that X, and of course the rebranding is a problem, as we know. There's all sorts of connotations to the branding of X, and Twitter had great potential to be monetized with a proper strategic and less impulsive vision. I think the competition is a problem. I'm not saying Musk can't. If he can, he's also got to continue to get further funding for such a project, and that remains to be seen.
And just a quick note on what you think of Threads.
It's very difficult to know at the moment, but Facebook has a lot of experience in monetizing products. And the only time the Meta Group and Zuckerberg have made a mistake, not a terrible mistake, was paying $20 billion for WhatsApp. When you think of the jewel in the acquisition crown was Instagram, but still WhatsApp is a valuable part of their portfolio. I think Facebook can make some success with that. But I think it's the emerging social media that we've got to watch. But yes, Facebook is a threat. I mean, this is a company that was able to resist the early acquisition from Google and go on to be its own very powerful digital portfolio globally, and actually is the second biggest advertising based social media in the world after the Google portfolio.
So if Threads has got any chance of success, it's going to be because of the power and the breadth and the impact of Facebook, really.
and attracting a number of traditional Twitter users and brands over to Threads, and also onboarding young people into that format of microblogging. They've got to make a success out of the microblogging phenomenon, which is very powerful because Twitter's user base and what they did went beyond the monthly active users. It was always only a few 100 million. But it was the fact that the microblogging involved a lot of very high profile people with followers, and the nature of microblogging brought a lot of live opinion influencers, news, even news, breaking news, that then went viral all over the other types of social media. And Twitter's significance went way beyond its user base in terms of viral influence of other social media. It remains to be seen whether Musk will retain that strength. So it wasn't necessarily a financial strength, but in terms of PR, in terms of viral influence, Twitter was legendary. And its influence went way beyond its monthly active users.
One big company that I know, they have made a decision to leave Twitter because of the controversy surrounding it, and they are instead putting huge amounts of new energy into their use of LinkedIn. And I'm just interested in your views on how good that channel is. Of course, it was almost at one stage a business card channel, but now it's microblogging itself. And I just wondered whether LinkedIn is a good decision for a company.
A very good decision. In fact, it's a very relevant question that when companies start to change strategic direction, they can lead strategic change. They can be disruptive in what they do. And I think a lot of companies have underutilized LinkedIn. LinkedIn is now owned by Microsoft. And it's one of the companies, unlike Nokia, where they've resourced it really well and managed it well. It's the world's largest formal social media network. And again, its influence goes beyond its user base, but that's still very, very significant. And LinkedIn continues to grow steadily. And I think its ability to do microblogging and to be a curation network for brands as well, because Twitter was also a curation tool for brands where they communicated with customers and prospective customers. LinkedIn can achieve that very much. And of course, we talked about the importance of networking earlier. And LinkedIn is very good at blended networking. So business networking, the formal networking of people, and also encouraging physical events and networking events as part of that. So I think LinkedIn has a very, very strong ability to leverage the sort of uncertainty that's happening at X under Musk.
Finally, Francis, for those business leaders and entrepreneurs out there listening to this complex world of digital marketing, what are your 3 top tips for anyone thinking seriously about developing their digital side, their digital marketing strategy for their business? What are your top 3 tips?
The first tip is never underestimate the blended approach. Don't think that digital is the panacea. Take an approach of bringing digital in as part of your practice alongside your traditional business methods. So, for example, personal selling is still very important. If you're a manufacturer, you need to get things on the shelves of retailers. You need personal relationships. They can't all be done digitally. You need Salesforce. You need to talk to people. You need to meet people. That's the human touch. But creating a balance, taking a blended approach to your business and having people skilled in both social media and personal selling and business development is very, very important. Brand presence offline and online, equally important. And so that would be the first tip. The second tip is to develop a digital portfolio, not to try and stretch yourself across all of the digital media, but decide what are your main target audiences now, your main target audiences in the future as you scale up in your business, and to develop an optimized digital portfolio where you concentrate on some social media, but always with the website at the hub of that. You see, some people think social media is a replacement for website. No, the website is the hub of your digital portfolio. And it continues to be, even for search, being picked up by search marketing, because you have to be good at search marketing. And then choosing the social media, 2 to 3 platforms that really suit your business audience, your brand, and your business vision, and keeping it tight and keeping it focused, and then managing that really well in terms of what I call the digital portfolio. And number 3, an organic first strategy. It takes time to post organic content. It's free to place on your website. It's free to place on social media, but it's not free to create. So if you go into an organic first strategy, even an estate agent going around with a mobile phone to do a video of a property for Rightmove and any of the other property portals like Zoopla, you have to learn how to do it properly. You need a gimbal. You need to learn how to zoom, how to use the videography features. If you're doing it in-house, somebody in the estate agency needs to learn skills and do a course on that. It costs money and time to do that properly. You can do it. If not, pay videographers to do it. There are lots of people, freelancers out there. An organic first strategy can be done from good in-house training and using very affordable freelancers to produce digital content regularly for social media. Part of an organic first strategy should also be to do some regular blogging, not only on your products, but on your industry and your sector and the regions in which you operate. Because we can see that any of the leading digital brands, such as Hootsuite or HubSpot, are brilliant at that. IBM are brilliant at that. They even have a dedicated sustainability IBM.org that does loads of organic content and is a thought leader in the sector. That builds trust. So I would say an organic first strategy. Don't just chase the paid advertising. Now, I'm not underestimating the power of advertising, but if you look at the growth of Coca-Cola, people think it was all about advertising. That's not the truth. It was about personal selling, franchising, sales force management, combined with good advertising. So the Michelin brands, they're the kings of content marketing with the Michelin Guide. That was ingenious. That started in the 19th, early 20th century, linking tires to travel and restaurants. Brilliant. Lego, building brand communities decades ago. So I think organic first strategy is very important, even for a small business. And making sure that you have a strong digital portfolio to support that. But I think all brands, whether they're small startups, local businesses, or businesses scaling up to international and global brands, must engage in a blended approach for the future, or they will decline.
Francis Malidi, a Senior Teaching Fellow in Digital Marketing here at Aston University and Programme Director of the university's MSc in Strategic Digital Marketing. Many thanks for taking part in this episode of Aston Means Business.
Thank you. Lovely speaking to you.
And thanks to you, our audience, for listening to Aston Means Business, an original podcast series for Aston University. Remember, if you've enjoyed today's episode, you can find and listen to earlier episodes by simply Googling Aston Means Business. And if you're interested in the MSc in Strategic Digital Marketing, you can visit aston.ac.uk/study/courses/strategic-digital-marketing-MSc, or more simply, just Google MSc Strategic Digital Marketing Aston and you'll easily find that page. This is the final episode in this series of Aston Means Business, but we'll be back later this year with a new series. Aston Means Business. Thanks for listening.